Hello, everyone. All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexia Brewster. I am a program manager here at Forte, specifically for the professional programs team. So we work with women from a variety of different levels of experience, typically women who are not in an education setting. So it's usually people who they've already graduated and are just exploring different opportunities for professional development. So Forte is really a great organization in the sense that we're able to provide these opportunities to our professional audience. So this specific speaking series that you're here today, in case this is your first one, is called Leadership Coach. So it's meant to be a short espresso shot, if you will, of professional development where we have a rotating schedule of different topics that really interest people around things that are happening to you personally or in the workplace. So for today's leadership coach, I'm excited, is the power of no. So we're going to learn, how do you effectively say no and know how to balance and manage your time better so you're not just saying yes to everything and feeling overwhelmed. I am really excited who our guest speaker is today. So it is Ashley Lawson-Heiser, who is the director of pre-MBA programs here at Forte. So she does a ton of work on our team. She's responsible for all pre-MBA and early career programming. She leads her own team within Forte and connects women around the globe to resources and opportunities within the business world. She also has a really extensive experience in admissions and recruitment, which I think kind of nicely ties into her experience with the power of no and having to say no a lot. And over the career, Ashley, has mastered the art of intentionally setting healthy boundaries for herself and her team. So really from the management point of view as well, while managing multiple priorities, often amid a rigorous international travel schedule. So without further ado, again, I'm really excited to welcome Ashley here and to talk about this power of no. So go ahead, Ashley, and take it away.
Awesome, Alexia. That was quite the introduction. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for saying yes today. So yes, my presentation today is about the power of no, but you all obviously had to say yes to be here. So really excited to be speaking today. Yes, my background in admissions did unfortunately mean that I had to say no a lot. Maybe that's why Alexia picked me for this opportunity. Little did she know that also growing up, no was probably my favorite word. My family still makes fun of me because I made it a 2-syllable word. So it needed more emphasis. So growing up, it was no, as probably many children did. But I am well into my adulthood and my family still makes fun of me for that. So no is definitely one of my favorite words. And today I'm going to talk about how that can be really powerful for you, both professionally and personally. So the first thing I want to talk about, though, is why we say yes and some of the really common reasons we might say yes in our lives, again, both personally and professionally. The first one is sometimes we don't like confrontation. And this is me. I would like it if we all just got along. I would like to avoid confrontation. And sometimes saying yes to people is the easiest way that we perceive to do that, to avoid confrontation. You might also be a people pleaser. So not only do you want people to get along, but maybe you want people to like you. I don't have this problem as much. Maybe I should have this problem. But if you want to kind of have that perception of likability, sometimes we fall into this trap of feeling that we need to say yes to everything. You might also have FOMO or other versions of this. I always think the best stories, the coolest stuff happens when you're not there. So it's easy to say yes, because when you say no, that something's going to happen that you're going to miss out on, and everyone's going to be talking about it, and you won't have been there. So it's easy to fall into this trap of saying yes. And the other thing is, sometimes it's just easier and faster to say yes. It's easier to just go with the flow, go with momentum as you go forward. And as women, we often fall into saying yes a lot at work. So there is a great study that McKinsey does every year called Women in the Workplace. There's some data from 2021 that women say yes to a whole heck of a lot outside of our day-to-day job responsibilities. I don't think anybody's job probably includes providing emotional support, but on average, women managers do that more frequently than their male counterparts. There's a lot of pieces of work, extra duties that we do at work that we're saying yes to. And that makes women great managers. It makes women invest more in things like DE&I, but it also means there's a lot more load on women in the workplace. So there's a lot of things that you're doing. Obviously, there's your job, but then there's this other piece, right? That's really important, like managing and avoiding burnout and making sure your team has a manageable workload. But that's you potentially saying yes a lot at the workplace. So I want to kind of tie into why we say yes. And this is going to be a little bit of cool psychology. So one of my majors in college was psychology. So any opportunity I get to talk about the brain, I want to. So if you are a psychologist or a psychiatrist, feel free to correct me. But I'm gonna try to make it simple here. So saying yes is really easy. This is the kind of animal part of your brain. This is your limbic system. This is all about survival. So quick decisions that need to be made. This is when we see something shiny or sweet or fast, really easy. This is the part where we're saying yes. This is the feeling part of our brain. We just immediately are making decision. And in today's world, it's really easy to say yes all the time, right? This is clickbait. This is endless scrolling. This is how I ended up watching YouTube shorts for an hour last night. Okay. I said, okay, one more, right? It is so easy to continue with that momentum, right? It is really easy to say yes. But saying no is actually more difficult. That uses your prefrontal cortex, which is really the part of your brain that makes you human, more than an animal, right? This is the thinking part of your brain. And this is really the part of your brain that allows you to set priorities. So this is not just what is shiniest or what tastes best or the easiest app to use on your phone, right? This is the part that actually lets you set those priorities in your life, whether they be personal or professional. It also enables you to defer happiness, which is a really tough thing to do. This is obviously something that we typically get better at as we age. And there's an experiment they did at Stanford University in the 60s called the marshmallow test. So they had children. They gave them the option. You could have one marshmallow now or two marshmallows in 15 minutes. And I guess a marshmallow was like a really cool treat in the 60s. I don't really know because I don't want either of those, but you kind of get the gist here, right? Do you want to wait for a better reward, but you need to wait, right? There's some thinking that's involved in that. If you just went for whatever's fastest, quickest, shiniest, sweetest, you're obviously taking that marshmallow right there. But you have to realize 2 marshmallows is going to take you a little more time. It's going to take some thinking. So that is kind of a prime example of you need to weigh some options. You're doing some internal math when you're saying no initially in a situation like that. This is the idea of thinking versus feeling. Sometimes this is kind of the hot versus cold part of thinking. There's a lot of different ways that psychology frames this. But in essence, this is allowing you, as I said, to set priorities, but also to set boundaries, right? This is you saying, no, I can't do that right now. It's going to help you make better decisions and can lead to new opportunities because you can, again, set those boundaries and be able to make more thinking decisions rather than reactive decisions. So there's a lot of value in being able to say no. Now, that being said, it is important that you say no in the right way, if you will. So if you are familiar at all with improv, there's kind of the rule of yes and. This is kind of the opposite of that. So not to nerd out too much, but if you ever do any tabletop gaming, the rule is no but. So this is a little bit of kind of no but. So when you are going to say no to something, I think the first really important thing is to understand the request, because if you're going to be making that more rational decision, more in line with your boundaries and priorities, it's important that you understand what the specific request is. So this should not be just a quick no, but this should be really understanding the request. And when you do say no to something, providing some context, I think, is important, because again, we are all conditioned that yes is the default. So if you're going against the default, providing context is helpful in how someone may react to you saying no. The other thing that you can do to help you say no better is to defer the decision. So what I mean by this is when someone is asking something of you or making a request, a really easy default position is, thank you so much for this opportunity. I would like to take some time to consider it. So even if you know you're going to say yes or you know you're going to say no, taking some time to think about the decision is a really good way to force you to reflect on how that aligns with your boundaries and priorities. The other important thing here is again, kind of like acknowledging the positives. So again, if you're saying no, it's okay to say, no, this is kind of the no, but like, no, but that was a great idea. And the other thing here is delivering it well. And this is something that I personally struggle with because I am very comfortable saying no. And so I need to know that, again, for most people, that is not their default position. So delivering this really well is important. And again, saying no, in essence, in some ways, is saying yes to yourself. So if this is making your skin crawl, if you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine saying no to my boss, think about it rather than saying no to your boss is saying yes to your goals or saying yes to your priorities. So delivering that well means externally delivering it well, but also making sure it sits well with yourself. So kind of delivering that message so it sits well in your stomach, if you will. So I do recognize sometimes you don't have the ability to say no, right? You're all probably thinking, wow, this is really nice, but like there are times I just have to say yes, right? And I totally understand that. And so Alexia in a little bit here is going to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have at Forté here that can help you really distinguish and learn when to say yes and when to say no and how to say them more effectively. So I've given you kind of a couple of quick examples here, but I want to make sure you know that there's many other resources that are available to help you learn about when to say yes and when to say no and how to do that effectively. So I do want to have a little bit of a discussion here. So I'm going to ask you all, if you don't mind, to participate by typing in the chat to share your experiences with one another. And I want to talk about kind of three things that are all very related. So some of these you might want to answer all three. You might want to just answer one. That's fine too. One is if you have some experience about a time that you said no, what was that experience like? What did you say no to that worked really well for you? On the flip side, what can make it hard to say no? So if some of you had that initial like cringe, skin crawl, a stomach hurt, oh my gosh, I can't imagine doing this. What makes it difficult? Is it that fear of missing out? Is it disappointing someone else? Help us understand what makes it hard to say no. And then finally, are there some benefits to saying no that you've experienced? So any kind of testimonial you want to share about your ability to say no. And I want to give kind of two examples. One is it's January. And this is a very common month of the year where people say no, right? People are doing dry January. That's a common way to say no, right? People may also be doing veganuary. I don't know how to say it, but if you became vegan for a month, right? You're saying no to animal products. So maybe there's a New Year's resolution that someone out there has that they can share about saying no. So again, this is kind of reframing rather than not just saying yes to more plants in your diet, but it's saying no to animal products, whatever that might be. And I'll say a personal example here that I had shared with a couple of people here at Forté was, one of my challenges, again, thinking about kind of your boundaries and your priorities for the year. One of my challenges was I have a lot of meetings at work, right? So I'm in meetings most of the beginning of the week. And by the time the end of the week comes around, I go, how am I ever supposed to do all the work that I got in these meetings, right? So I had listened to a podcast by Adam Grant that talked about meetings and why they suck. And one of the things was basically time blocking. And so on every Thursday on my calendar, I have blocked, I have a nice little note that says, please no meetings. And I try to have every Thursday be my no meeting day. I try to do all the work that I've gotten in the week on Thursdays. And so I've said no to meetings on Thursdays as much as I can, right? If I get asked to do something on Thursday, if Alexia had asked me to do this on Thursday, I of course would have said yes. But again, saying no so that I can set my priorities, right? That I'm here with my boundaries where I've said I'm trying to get this work done. So any examples, any reactions to the three of these, I'd love to see in the chat. And I see, Alexia, you've taken me off mute or taken yourself off mute. So feel free to jump in here too.
Yeah, of course. First, I'm going to say I'm actually going to pause the